I have been using AI every single day for the past 2 years, and I've spent thousands of dollars in subscriptions. And for most of that time, there's been one thing that has kept bugging me. AI is clearly smart, but every new conversation is basically like you're talking to a new hire on day one. You re-explain everything every single time. And I thought that's just the way that it was, but it turns out it's not, because 2 months ago, the team at Claude finally stood up and figured out a fix. And it's so simple that it's actually kind of annoying. It's called skills. And once I actually understood what a skill was, not just the technical details, like the idea behind it, it has completely changed the way that I think about AI. So let's actually talk about the problem, because I don't think most people have a good grasp of it yet. So what usually happens is you open up a new chat. And generally, this is for the majority of people, the interaction that works, right? You grab your docs, you grab all of the knowledge and context that you want from either Notion, Drive, Notepad, wherever. You paste it into the chat, you get it, and you do the work that you wanted to, you get the answer, and then you close the chatbot. And then you just repeat that cycle. And this happens every single day. And eventually, what you realize is you have to re-explain the tone that you want. You have to explain your audience, if it's for content, your constraints, every single time. And then at some point, you just say, well, whatever, and you just accept that your AI is just going to give you generic outputs. But the thing is, this is no longer an AI problem. The models are insanely capable today. They can pretty much do anything you ask it. The core issue is it's a memory/documentation problem. Imagine this: you hire someone who is just absolutely insane at their job. Every task you give them, they crush it. But every Monday morning, they show up with no memory of the previous week. So you have to spend half your time just explaining to them what and how to do their job. That's kind of what's happening with AI agents. And now there are a lot of solutions. So ChatGPT has GPTs. You can create custom GPTs and share it. Claude has projects. And while they do work a little bit, they don't actually solve the problem, because at some point you're just managing 6 different agents, how to do 6 different micro interactions. And none of these actually solve the core problem, which is you have no way of teaching the AI how to do the task that you want it to do permanently. And that is what skills solve. Okay, so what actually is a skill? Because the name sounds either obvious or technical depending on how you hear it, and it's kind of neither. And the simplest version that I like to think about it is a skill is just a permanent named way of doing a specific thing. So like to think of it as you're writing a job description, but not for a person, more of like for a task. A job description might say, here's the role, here's what success looks like, here's what we do around here. Skill is like kind of the same, but the employee here is the AI, and then the role is actually just a specific repeatable piece of work. And like, again, in the simplest form, it really just has a name, a description, and just instructions on how to do a specific task. Now you can get more advanced. You can have skills that are, maybe they have extra knowledge. So for example, you might have a skill where you have the name and then there's examples. And again, in the main instructions, you have the description. And then the instructions might say, if you need to do more things, look at the example files. And don't worry, we'll cover specific examples in a second. And again, the nice part about skills is that you can have scripts. You can have anything, really. Like I said, it is a way for you to describe a unit or a task, and then for the AI, it can go and read the instructions, and you can add anything really that you want to. And the nice part where skills are really useful is how the AI models look and use them. When you have skills, maybe you have 10, 20, 30, the AI doesn't load all of them, right? Whatever Claude, ChatGPT, they don't load all of the skills, because that would bloat the context and generally would reduce performance. Let's say you are the user and you say, write a project report, okay? You can kind of think of it as like a little bit of a table of contents. The only thing it can see really is the name and then the description, right? So here, maybe I have project manager, report writer, and then these are simple ones, right? And it'll look and say, okay, actually for this one, I might need maybe the project manager and writer, okay? Maybe not even the project manager, maybe the report writer. So it'll look at that, then it'll load that full skill into its context, right? It'll read it, it'll load the whole text file. Now we have the skill, it's activated. And now what ends up happening is the model becomes capable. It's actually able to read the description and text that you said, and it performs that work. Again, the nice part here is you don't need to re-explain how to do the task. It just knows when I ask for a report, I'm gonna go look at the skill for report writing and always follow those instructions. Now I know this can all feel abstract and might be confusing, so let me give you a few examples of what this actually looks like in practice. So here I have a very simple skill. It's brand voice. Now for the sake of this one, I made it in the brand voice of Apple. And as you can see, it's actually pretty straightforward. I have a description and then I have a content. Now, if you read the description, it says, use Apple's brand voice, and it describes when to use the skill. So if I ask something about writing copy, marketing content, etc. And when I use this skill, my agent will actually just see the description. And if it sees, hey, the user's request is relevant to the description, it'll pull in the rest of this. And it doesn't need to see this at all times, only when it's creating content or brand, when I need to use the brand voice. And this is a pretty simple example because it just has, rules and examples, and it's just one single file. But you can even do more complicated, maybe more useful examples. So here, let's say we need to do research, okay? I had it make like a research skill, competitive research. Now, this is pretty lengthy, right? This I had actually Claude make it, and for reference, it's quite easy to make these skills because you just go into any of these sort of AI systems and just prompt it, and they know how to create a skill. But in this one, if you look, it has the description of like, when to use it and how to use it. And then I've also created a couple of scripts, and in this case, it's Python code. And so now when it needs to do competitive research, it'll go look up, okay, let me load in this competitive research skill. And it has access to scripts. So then I can describe when to use it. So maybe this is sort of like a way to do a competitor scan. And now this can run code and basically do proper competitor scan and research and competitive analysis by pulling in and using that script. And the nice part is you can kind of expand this to however many scripts that you want. You can create subfolders and references. So maybe your actual description is not just in one file. You could create folders, and you could have examples and saying, well, when in X scenario you should do Y, look at the other folder. So here we just have a simple scripts folder, but there might be more prompts and more documentation. And again, I like to think of it as if I'm going to describe a work function or a job function, right? I have the skill, which is the high level understanding, and then I can tell the AI to load the different pieces of sort of the task as it goes along, instead of getting this giant prompt and then it, having all that prompt, and then sometimes it uses it, sometimes it doesn't. So it's just like a very elegant way to load in the knowledge it needs whenever it needs based on what the user is asking. And like I said, if you're curious how to build these skills, you just go into Claude or you go into ChatGPT and you say, build me a skill to do X. You might need to look at, like, if you wanted to get a bit more advanced, you probably need to actually just figure out the specifics where you want to add API keys. But for the majority of it, the models do a pretty good job. And I want to make a distinction here because it's important. This is not just like a fancier prompt. A prompt is just you giving it instructions at the moment. Maybe you copy paste it a bunch of times and you have to like open a new chat, write your context, get your answer. You're basically starting over, right? Explain once, explain twice, explain, like, just copy paste, copy paste. Whereas skills, one time you write it, and then every subsequent request, it just works. Maybe you need to update it, but for the most time, it just sticks. Okay, so now let's just zoom out for a second because there's a bigger thing happening here, right? Last year, everyone has been building agents, right? You have a customer support agent, maybe you have a generic research agent, one for writing, maybe a data analysis agent, more agents, more use cases, kind of more complexity, right? But it kind of made sense because if you want AI to do X, then you just build an agent for X. What people are starting to say with skills is that you've sort of been solving the wrong problem. You don't need more agents. You just need like one really good agent for a specific task that knows how to do things, right? Like I like to kind of see skills a little bit for apps, but for expertise. It's not necessarily new, but it's just a thing that just the AI knows more of, right? Because previously you had to build a tool for every single new task. Now you just teach it how to use your existing tools to do a task. Like, again, think about it like this. Previously, you have maybe a research agent and then a writing agent, and then you could say, well, go do research on this task, and you have to tell, okay, agent A, when you're done task A, make sure you do, you talk to the writing agent and then the data analysis agent, and it sort of just gets messy. Whereas with skills, I can have one AI, right? Maybe I give it a role of a YouTube researcher and writer. Now I can load in all of the skills necessarily to do that, right? Maybe it does need data analysis. Maybe it does need a skill for doing keyword search. Maybe it needs a skill for creating thumbnails. Now I can create all those and I can say, hey, here you go. And now I have a fully working for this specific task. I don't need to set up 6 or 7 different agents. I just have the one agent with its work folders and its skills, and it's able to do that specific sort of like role for me. I kind of like to think of it as like it's more of just like a human model, right? It's how we work with people we trust. You don't hire a new person for every task. You just teach people how to do that task, and that's kind of how I see skills. And here's what I keep coming back to, because what I realize is that like the models are increasingly capable, like they're extremely capable. They can pretty much do any task that you give it as long as it has the right set of tools. What was missing, I think, was that there was no way for you to actually, for the model or the AI to know how you work, right? I think skills close that gap. Are they perfect? Not quite. Maybe there's some additions and updates, but I think the concept behind, define a work function slash like task once, and then anytime you need to do the task, the AI can just go look it up and it works every single time. You don't have to repeat yourself, copy pasting prompts. Yeah. And so that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, let me know. I'm also curious, what is the first skill that you'd build? What are some interesting skills you've seen? I'm really curious to see kind of what people are coming up with. But yeah, see you in the next one.